Welcome to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Join me on a journey back home to your truest self in this inspiring, enlightening, and entertaining show. After a near-death experience in a car crash at 15 years old, I made a choice to stay and brought back with me 3 simple truths that I found from the other side. Love is all there is. Our time is over here quicker than we think, and we all have a purpose, a soul blueprint to fulfill. On this show, you will find a higher purpose, a creative expression, and unique soul attributes that you can bring forth into this world. Stay tuned with me for the next hour and find your higher purpose on My Wild Magic, starting now. Welcome, and thank you for joining me. I'm Adrienne, and you're listening to My Wild Magic with Adrienne. And if you want to check out more of what I have to offer, go to mywildmagic.com and take the free quiz to see what your tribe of light is. So today joining us, we have Lauren Johnston, and she does Resonance Repatterning. Been working with her for quite a few years now and really enjoy the work it offers because it helps to really, I find, kind of unravel more quickly some of the deeper unconscious patterns that you don't realize maybe are holding you back from some of the positive things you want in your life. So I'm going to let Lauren explain a little bit more about that. So Lauren, welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks, Adrienne, for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about how you got started, like what really drew you into it. What were you doing before?
Mm-hmm. So kind of an interesting story. I actually, in my 20s, was a bartender. And then in my 30s, I became a hairdresser. So I was kind of naturally listening to people's problems. And then I met a woman, Nancy Crossway, who was doing the resonance repatterning process in like the late 90s. It's been around since about the early 90s. And Nancy kept telling me, you could do this process and you can actually do it on yourself, which is really awesome. Mm-hmm. Certainly not for the bigger, deeper, issues and that kind of stuff, but, surface issues are just sort of like, something kind of bugging you or whatever. But long story short, she just kept saying, you should really learn the process. You could get certified, blah, blah. And I said, I'll just pay you to do it on me. Why would I go learn how to do something? I'm a hairdresser. I have a career. But then a couple of things happened. I was out in Sedona, Arizona, and I had 2 separate readings from 2 separate psychics. And they both were saying, without a doubt, you're a healer and you really need to get into more of not just like cutting somebody's hair. And I was really resistant to it. And I didn't even like the word healer. Like it just sounded too much power, too kind of crazy and woo-woo. So anyway, a couple of years went by and I was actually getting married and I was very stressed out. And at that time, Nancy got very sick and she actually almost died. And so she was able and willing to have enough strength to see me the week before my wedding. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful to her because it, grounded me, making this new transition. And at that point, I made a deal with the universe. And I said, if Nancy lives, I'll take the class.
You got to watch those types of deals, right? It's like the deal with God could be worse than the deal with the devil. Next thing you know, you're on your life path. And then what?
Yeah. And so a year later, the classes came to Austin because they used to be taught out in Phoenix and some other areas, Tucson. And because we had a teacher that moved here. And so I took the 6 classes and within a year I was certified to do the repatterning and then later went on and got like a NLP life coaching certificate, timeline therapy, a conscious language. Yeah. And a whole bunch of certifications that truth be told, even hypnotherapy, truth be told, I come back to the resonance repatterning every single time. And I use them in all of my coaching sessions. My sessions are 90 minutes because I like to have at least 30 to 40 minutes to do the actual repatterning. So that's pretty much how I got into it.
Yeah, you've had quite a life journey, and you're right. Each one of those professions, you were probably doing a ton of healing energy. And like you said, listening to people's problems along the way. And why not get paid for that? Okay. Sorry. I think my computer might be glitching a little bit. So so I've loved the work and working with you. And can you tell me a little bit about like the difference between resonance repatterning versus maybe something else? I'm just going to grab a cord real quick just to make sure I stabilize my internet here.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So, I mean, I think each person has their own preference, but truth be told, like if you are doing affirmations or even meditation, and all of that stuff is fantastic. But from my experience, it's like if I do a meditation or if I do a affirmation, even if it's over and over, if I'm not really like resonating with that sense of calmness or that new affirmation or belief that I want to adapt, then to me, it makes it much harder to do a meditation. I feel super calm for a couple of hours and then I go right back into spin out. And so the repatterning, we actually go down into the subconscious level and we identify some unconscious things that might be driving a belief like, I'm not good enough or I'm not capable, and then using positive and negative statements, we're able to clear those belief patterns and then also create or activate a new emotional neural pathway in the brain. So then it's so much easier. You start saying affirmations. It's like you start beginning to believe that it's true. Your energy or your vibration rises up. You start getting excited about it. You start like really like, oh yes, I am capable or I am good enough. And then it's just much easier to start making choices from that place versus making choices from a place of I'm not good enough or I'm not capable.
Yeah. And so, I was thinking the other day about this actually, about how we use the word subconscious and we use the word inner child. And I've been really kind of thinking about it in terms of when we do inner child work, which a lot of people are kind of familiar with, and we're getting in touch with that is where we tend to write a lot of our subconscious stories. But the subconscious is, its own world to itself. And it is how we're creating, I'd say like 90% of our life is being created a little bit more out of the subconscious.
Yep.
But in working with it and kind of doing more like just bringing my inner child in and kind of loving my inner child, I'm just blessing my inner child. I'm also noticing that I'm actually blessing my subconscious too. And so I'm wondering what you think about like the connection between our inner child, right, and the subconscious. What's the connection that you're aware of with that?
I love that question. That is such a cool question. So to me, on the subconscious level, is where we actually store memories and experiences and also the beliefs that came out of those experiences. And I think the inner child is the same way. It's where it holds it, it houses it, somewhat like the Akashic records, how they talk about how that in the Akashic records, that's where we hold all of our experiences. So I think it's really kind of the same, because if you think about it, the inner child is the one who really sets into motion, all of those beliefs. Because I'm not saying that there are some beliefs that can be created in an adult experience, but I still feel that it's the inner child, it's the younger child who actually creates a lot of those beliefs, and then we hold them in that inner child or we hold them in the subconscious level. That's why I think that when we can embrace the inner child, it's so healing and so soothing. So bringing those two elements in, clearing the stuff around the subconscious mind is clearing in the inner child memory banks as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, and I'm not sure where the word inner child got introduced. It might have come up in the 60s, 70s, something like that. I'm sure somebody was like,
that'd be cool to look it up.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure, it's just a term that somebody kind of used, and then it's become kind of widespread and, more well-known. But, I would imagine that the inner child is just sort of a figurative language in a way. Like, yes, we do have experiences and memories as a child, and so it's easy to say that, but it maybe is just like part of our archetype. You know what I mean? Like the inner child is just another word we're using symbolically,
Yes.
literally for the subconscious. And the reason I'm bringing it up is just because sometimes people kind of have an aversion or don't really like working with the inner child per se, but the subconscious, it really is the same thing. I think, you know, you could go either way with it, but it's, but I feel like the word subconscious probably encompasses maybe even more of what's going on in there than just the concept of the inner child too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like on that level, you know, and then
Yeah.
we use the word higher self or soul, and they're just maybe dimensions of energy. So when you're doing resonance repatterning, it to me seems as though we're actually kind of working with quantum physics in a sense.
It is.
That you're working on a quantum level of your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a combination, I'm going to say belief system, kind of a combination of your emotions, feelings, thoughts that have created like a belief system.
Yep.
But you're going in quantum physics way. Because what I noticed in working with you is that like we go through these statements, which I'd like you to give us an example of in a few minutes, right? But we go through these statements, positive and negative, which is very interesting to see what your energy is turned on for, because we are literally light beings. We're energy before we are matter. And so to me, when I work with you, I've noticed these other energies, other beings, energies, things that maybe you work with, my higher self, whatever, but it goes in on a quantum level and starts shifting things around. So it's not even just the words that are being said. It feels like resonance repatterning goes in on a quantum level, quantum physics type level, and start shifting things around in a way.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain actually how it works.
But resonance repatterning is based on quantum physics because everything has energy. You know, your thoughts have energy, your feelings have energy. You know, the muscles in your body have energy. Everything around us has energy. You know, a table has energy. It's just a real dense energy. That's why it's so solid. And the less dense the energy is, the easier it is to shift it. So a thought is, it's really hard to change a table, but it's really easy to change a thought and change the resonance with that thought, the frequency of that thought, because it is at such a lighter level. Okay. So another reason why we talk about it being, you know, based in quantum physics is because it takes something that you resonate with is true to you. Okay. It doesn't matter what reality is. It doesn't matter what other people say. It's what is true to you. So if I believe that, you know, I am, you know, one of my clients who she recently lost like 60 pounds and she looks great. And she was really having a hard time when people were like, God, you look so healthy and you seem happier. And, you know, how much weight have you lost? And she was not resonating with it. So she was having a hard time taking the compliments. So when we shifted her resonance so she could get in alignment with her reality of her physical body being completely different. And that was literally a period of maybe 3 sessions. And she, you know, did the whole Weight Watchers thing and, you know, spent a year, I guess, getting herself into that position. But once we shifted that vibration, it was a quantum leap. It was one day, I don't believe that I have lost all this weight. I look at myself in the mirror and I still look 60 pounds heavier. But then once we shifted and did that quantum leap, she was able to go, wow, this is what I am now. And then she was able to take compliments. So
yeah, you know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie Shallow Hal.
Yeah.
And there's another one that's out there too, maybe with oh gosh, I can't remember her name right now. She's a comedian with blonde hair and she hits her head. And you know, and I think with Shallow Hal, he met up with Tony Robbins and got hypnotized in a way. But what happened was their belief systems in both of these two movies, it was kind of like weight issues and self-esteem issues. and somehow something shifted with their head, like they hit their head or something, you know, or a hypnosis thing kind of happened. And all of a sudden they started seeing people, they started seeing their true self, their true inner beauty, and no longer saw the weight or the issues. And because of that, they ended up living their life so much more alive and just like so with greater self-esteem and self-love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then everybody, because of that, even though they physically had not changed, you know, their attitude shifted.
Yeah.
And when their attitude and their belief system about themselves shifted, the world shifted. They got opportunities and people started asking them out and really good things happened and they were more social. They just enjoyed their life. So it's amazing, I think, when you do shift out of some of the negative thought forms or like ways that we sort of tunnel vision of how we see ourselves, how much more self-love there is.
And the spreading of that.
Yeah, you know, and so I find that resonance repatterning, it kind of clears up, I think, on a big level, some of the illusions we have about ourselves so that we can see the truth.
Yeah.
So we're not just replacing a positive affirmation in a negative one. I feel like at the end of it, I actually am just literally seeing more of the truth about what's really my truth, or the truth, you know, that I see in the world from a higher perspective than one that's maybe more wounded or tied to a belief system that's most of the time not even real. Like I'm amazed at how much we believe or think, or even memories are very faulty to what is real.
Yeah.
You know, on that level.
Yeah. And I like the way you brought up the movie Shallow Hal, because that's exactly what it was like. It's like he shifted his perspective. He shifted his, you know, resonance, and he saw people differently. And, you know, and then it just sort of trickled where I think it was Cameron Diaz what played the part.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, Gwyneth Paltrow. And, you know, he saw her inner beauty and all that stuff. And then that really built her confidence up, you know,
it does share.
Had a trickle effect to it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, so that positive self-image and, you know, really kind of returning back in a sense more to our true self, our divine self, that higher presence of energy, et cetera. So, we are going to go to a quick break. So everybody stay tuned. We're going to get a little bit deeper into this and maybe practice a little bit as well. And we'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. I am Adrienne Cobb. You're listening to My Wild Magic with Adrienne. You can check out more of what I have to offer at mywildmagic.com. Take the quiz on your tribe of light and different quests that I offer in personal sessions. And today we are working with Lauren Johnston on resonance repatterning. And resonance repatterning is a really fascinating form of quantum physics type of work, helping your mental body, your thought forms, working with the deep subconscious and getting your life on track more to a resonance of who you really are versus who you think you are. So Lauren, welcome back.
Yay.
So I want to go a little bit deeper into that. So in terms of our thought forms about ourselves and how misleading they can be, because most of the time we are so sure we are right about everything, but for sure that we're right about ourselves. I'm really, really wrong. And I know I am. I'm really, really right. And I know I am. I'm really, really this and whatever it is. We're so sure, you know what I mean? And the mind is a slippery slope. You know, it really gets kind of created in a certain way. So can you tell us anything about how resonance repatterning helps us with kind of making that transition, sort of like almost like a waking up sort of tool between who we think we are, and we're just so darn sure about that, versus who we really are, which might be something so much better, and why we don't want to let go of who we think we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So from my experience with my own personal life and then with my clients too, as human beings, we tend to tell ourselves a story, you know, and I mean, it's great because
we're great storytellers. The best in the universe.
The best. I've mastered the art of storytelling. But the problem with that is that it usually 95%, maybe more of the time, is not true. And when we go into that place and what I like to call the monkey mind, then it makes it really difficult to shift out of that. And so, I love Byron Katie's, she does a process called the work, and she asks 4 little questions, and I don't remember them right off the bat, but I know that the first one is always, can you absolutely be sure that is true? And, I'll bring that concept up to my clients in a session. I'll say, they'll say something like, I think he's going to break up with me. I know he's going to break up with me. I just know it. And it's like, okay, I get that you've had that personal experience before and it feels similar to you, but can you absolutely be sure that what you're telling yourself is true? And they will sit for a minute and they'll go, well, no, but boy, they are really holding on to it. They want to hold on to it, like a pit bull on a bone, and but using the repatterning, we're able to unwind from the experience, because we now know the story is usually based on something that the subconscious or the inner child had made up a belief about from a past experience. So it does help a lot to just realize that, maybe I'm not always right about these beliefs. And one thing I love to also practice in my own life and, kind of coach my clients is, when you go to the story, you want to also check in with, how does it feel when I tell myself, my boyfriend's going to break up with me, or I'm not good enough? How does it feel in the moment when you're telling yourself the story, the old story? And they'll say, well, I don't feel good at all. I feel horrible.
Yeah, right.
And that right there is like, warning sign that you're going down the complete wrong path of falseness, in my opinion, that's not true. And a lot of times, if I can't get them to leap, from the old belief into the new belief, unless I do a repatterning, a lot of times I'll bridge it for them.
Oh, okay. What's that? What does that mean? Like, how do you do that?
Bridging is awesome. It's about saying, instead of saying I'm capable, from I'm not capable, or I'm stupid, to I'm smart. That's a big leap. And, so when they're at home, what I teach them to do, because they're not doing a repatterning, except for with me, is I teach them to start bridging that old belief or story that they don't like into the new story, which is, first you go, okay, I'm not good enough. And then the next thing would say, okay, I choose to know what it would feel like to be good enough. I choose to know and explore what that would feel like.
So basically it's giving somebody back, what's giving them a choice instead of a have to be this. You're kind of introducing the mind to saying, well, maybe I could have something different than what I think.
Exactly.
And I'm a choice. I have free will, which is a big thing in human form. We forget is that we have free will with everything.
Yeah. And choice always gives us power, no matter what. Like if we stay in the negative old belief about ourselves, the story about ourselves, we have no choice. We're stuck there. We have no power. But we have power when we feel like we have choice. Well, I could choose to believe the old thought and feel really crappy, or I could choose to explore what it would feel like if I did believe that I am more than enough. And then the next step would be, I'm choosing to be enough. I'm choosing to be enough. Like once you get to the point where you're exploring, you're like, yeah, I think it would feel, I don't know, but I think if I felt like I was enough, I might apply for a new job.
Right.
And then once you're applying for the job and you're getting interviews, you can start saying, I choose to be enough. I choose to be enough. Then you land the job and then you're like, I am more than enough because I got this job,
Yeah.
But again, I don't want people to always rely on conditions to feel better.
Yeah, of course.
It's really important to, when you go to that first bridge step and you say, I choose to explore what it would feel like to know I was enough. And then if you could activate a feeling like, oh, I'd feel so confident. then you want to operate on what other things in my life brings me confidence, or I feel confident that I can do. And then you want to really focus on, wow, I'm really good at cooking. I am so good at cooking. And
Yeah.
I know when I cook, I have confidence in my cooking, and that vibration, that energy can also bridge us to the next level.
Well, and this is why you're on the My Wild Magic show. You're on the spirit hack part of the show. You're right, because I have 4 different sections. So, and this is one of my favorite spirit hacks, because it literally goes in and kind of provides like a hack into the mind to be able to make a jump inside yourself that maybe you otherwise weren't really making. You know what I mean? Like we just sort of get stuck in our own like mental ruts and, neuroemotional pathways and stuff with that. Yeah. So I love what you're saying about that. Pretty cool. So, in learning how to have a more positive aspect of yourself, like, what do you think is like a kind of a more common cause as to why we don't feel better about ourselves? Like we should. There's no reason not to most of the time, you know what I mean? But it just seems like it's a very common ailment throughout the entire world that people kind of err more to feeling negative about themselves than positive, but yet we're these divine God beings. Why do you think that is? Like in your work, have you come across?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. And, I follow a lot of the law of attraction, the Abraham Hicks teachings, because I find that they are so simple and easy for me to adapt. And our life living here on the earth is about contrast. We wouldn't know light if we didn't have dark. We wouldn't know hot if we didn't know what cold was. Yeah. So if we have a negative belief about ourselves, how are we going to know what a positive belief feels like if we don't have that contrast of what the negative feeling feels like? Yeah. So when something happens into our lives, and, I've really been practicing this probably for about 4 years very actively, where, if I'm having a really bad day, or, and of course, once you allow a condition to hijack you, then
in condition, you mean like an outside part of your reality, like a relationship, a job, money, whatever.
Yep. A car accident, purse got stolen, divorce, breakup, and I use the smaller ones to make the example. It's like, I got my purse stolen a couple of years ago, and I just allowed myself to go down. And then I got a ticket, a speeding ticket, and I didn't have my wallet because I didn't have my purse, and because, and it just snowballed into that. And, now what I've learned is that when the small event happens, to not let that hijack me, but to go into the contrast of like, okay, what do I want instead of this? Because what I was feeling when my purse was stolen was not safe. Somebody's taken advantage of me, and so what I did was I just pivot myself. I'm learning to pivot myself and say, what do I want instead of this? I want to live in a world that feels safe. I want to make good decisions that, I'm being more aware of my surroundings, and just kind of like really create from the negative experience what you want instead of that. I think that's a really big thing.
Well, and one thing that you're doing, which I am a big believer of, is connecting things into the emotional body. Yeah. So, it sounds like you've got the thought form of I'm not like life is dangerous. Like your wallet got stolen. Somebody has stolen something from me. And you could so go down the road of the victimization or the paranoia, like the mental thoughts, right? But what I like about what you're saying is you slowed yourself down, because most people just want to speed up when they get afraid about something or something's not going right. They want to speed up, actually. And honestly, slowing down, you were able to say, oh, this is how it's making me feel. I'm at choice. Do I want to feel this way about that? Yeah. And then once you get in touch with the feeling, I think that's really where you get into those lower 3 chakras, and you start to unravel the subconscious or the inner child energy by getting into the emotions and the feelings about how something's making you feel, when normally we just want to analyze it over and over and over in our mental body without ever going to the emotions. And then that begins to kind of entrap us into more projections and thoughts, and it validates the belief system when we stay in the mind. But when you go to the emotions, it seems like it interrupts it and becomes more authentic and real and more vulnerable. And it feels like that opens up the door to be able to shift when you take the charge off of that, it sounds.
Yeah, I agree. And Dr. Joe Dispenza says, the thoughts are the language of the mind and the emotions are the language of the body. And again, the body it has such a wisdom to it. So it can really like process those emotions and feelings. And I don't know if process is the right word I would use, but definitely feel into them, breathe into them. And it's easier to breathe through an emotion than it is to breathe through a thought. Because the emotion has a higher energy to it, like it's less dense. The thought has a denser energy to it. So you see, it's easier, in my experience, it's easier to breathe through the emotions. And then you can move to the other side and you can say, I choose to feel good about this experience and learn from it. You know, like when I got my purse stolen, it was one of these things where, you know, I put it on the floor because there was no hook. And, you know, all of a sudden I see a hand come in and yank it out, you know, and it's like, that was really dumb of me.
Wow. Yeah.
And by the time I get things zipped up and try to run out after them, they're gone, you know. So, and this was years ago, but anyway, my point being made is that, you know, in that moment, if I would have done it, I would do it differently now, which would have been like, what did I learn? What's the feeling? What do I choose instead of this? What's the experience I want to have next time? I even, you know, would visualize now, looking back in retrospect, now I would visualize myself changing stalls and going to a stall that had a hook or put my purse on my lap. So it's also about creating a new way of, I wouldn't say be more prepared for next time I go into a stall that doesn't have a hook, but in a way, that's what I'm saying.
Well, and the other thing that you had really introduced me to, which I thought was quite brilliant, is the concept of the triangle of where people can either be the victim, the perpetrator, or the savior. Yeah. And that's very much based on conditional love. I'm going to do something for you. Yeah. Where you feel inadequate. And then, you know, but a lot of times we end up controlling the person, then we become the perpetrator. It's like you always end up playing out all three roles. And so it's like by giving people choice, you're stepping out of conditional love, which is a triangle that keeps you in the victim, the perpetrator, the hero, the victim, the perpetrator, the savior, the victim, the perpetrator, over and over and over with your relationships with people, your family relations, your relationship to money, your relationship to health. And all of a sudden you can move more into unconditional love, which is the other thing about, I think with resonance repatterning, the cleaner, the more clean you sort of move through your subconscious energy, the higher you start thinking about yourself and shifting your vibration, life begins to respond, but you literally start treating yourself and life more unconditionally and more unconditionally honest as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when I use the word unconditional, and I think you and I agree on this, Adrienne, is that meaning I'm not, my emotions and my inner self is not dictated by the conditions outside of me. And I also want to say the thing about the triangle is that with a triangle, there always has to be a victim for one of the other two to show up. So like you can't, if you have just a perpetrator.
So let's say that we're using your example. Okay. So in your example, you would have been the victim because somebody stole something from you. The perpetrator was the person stealing the thing. And the savior would have been the person who you would have wished would have helped get your purse. And sometimes we have somebody who's playing that role. And sometimes in this case, nobody
There
really
was.
saved it, but you would have wanted that, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Somebody, okay.
Yeah.
So just to explain that a little bit, yeah, with that role. And so because of the work you had done on yourself, it sounds like you moved from that into being, you chose not to be the victim, which doesn't keep aligning you with victimization consciousness,
Energy.
poverty consciousness, low health issues, all the things that go along with victim consciousness. Like, give me an example. Well, we're going to go to a break, actually. We'll be right back in just a moment with Lauren Johnston. Welcome back. I am Adrienne Cobb, and you're listening to My Wild Magic with Adrienne. So we are here today with Lauren Johnston, who's been talking with us, if you're just now joining us, about resonance repatterning, which is a quantum physics type work that goes in and causes a reframe in your belief system and inner sense of self. So Lauren, if people wanted to get in touch with you to maybe check out a free resonance repatterning for themselves, to check out the work you do, or to book a session with you, how would they get in touch with you?
So I have what we call members vault, and it's just a platform where I hold all of my free repatternings, all my services actually, but there's 3 separate categories that I really specialize in. And it's funny because, so many people were like, you really need to specialize in one, but it's just the nature of, because these 3 things are the things that I always deal with in my own life, but it's relationships, whether it's relationship to yourself, to money, to health, and what have you, but then also money and abundance, because that's everybody, not everybody, but I think a lot of people have issues with that. And then self-care. And so there's 3 really great repatternings that have been recorded, but I proxy people into the recordings so they can participate and get the full benefit. We'll put that in the chat box, maybe. I didn't think about doing that.
Yeah, Ken, I don't know if you can put this up on a link, but just tell them what it is.
I think let me tell you, hold on.
And you can go to her website as well.
It's called hub.laurenjohnston. And
that's with a T, Johnston.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see what it looks like. I mean, I could maybe send it to you, but I think I sent it to you. But anyway, yeah. Lauren Johnston. Okay, it's hub.laurenjohnston.me. Hub, period, Lauren Johnston, one word, .me. And you can go to my website, because through my website, you would be able to find that portal as well. I've got some other free meditations and hypnosises and all kinds of really great free things you can try out at that portal. And that's
Lauren, LAUREN, Johnston, JOHNSTON.com, or is it .me?
.me. Yeah, and my website, that's hub.laurenjohnston.me, and then my website is www.laurenjohnston.me. M-E.
Got it. Cool.
So yeah, .com was already taken.
Great. Well, I highly recommend checking out what Lauren has to offer. So yeah. And I know, kind of an example, again, we were talking about moving from that victim consciousness where life is happening to you versus you are more kind of like a force happening to life, right? And I do feel like most of the time we seem to be raised, and I don't know if that's just being a child in the world or if it's an old kind of religious thing where people were taught not to be in their power, or politics and slavery. I don't really know, but maybe a combination throughout history, more of the old world energy, where people are kind of taught maybe not to be in their power. And then when they are taught to be in their power, it seems like that's because, for a lot of times it's because they have money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's power over others versus I'm empowered within my own divine presence.
And I'm here to empower other people to feel empowered, so there's a big difference between having power over people and us coming together and all resonating with feeling empowered, And I do want to say one more thing about the the triangle, again, you know, you have to have a victim to have a perpetrator. You have to have a victim to have a rescuer, you know, because the perpetrator and the rescuer don't match. Like there's no reason for a perpetrator and a rescuer to even have a pattern. There's no pattern for them to play out. So the play out pattern would be the rescuer and the victim, or the victim and the perpetrator. So, and that's an actual repatterning in our books, is the triangle. It's the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer. So if anybody feels like they play that role out, you know, just, you know.
Well, and I think most of humanity does. It's how we play out the lower three chakras. It's how we heal our pain body. It's, you know, it's like, it does help to heal the pain body, but it is sort of a drag to get stuck in it. And remembering that there's just a better way to heal other than having to do it unconsciously and conditionally. Instead, we can do it consciously and unconditionally.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so your work really, you know, helps people feel empowered and make better choices and think more clearly, you know,
and have a vibration of more of a, you know, most everyone after their session has such a lighter energy to them. And then the fun part for me is if I'm working with somebody who's really struggling, like, you know, going through a divorce, or, you know, going through the death of a loved one or something big like that, you know, I can see after about 3 to 4 sessions how their energy is just so much brighter, and they just feel so better. And, you know, I do all my work on Zoom, but I can still feel it, you know, that way. And I'll say, man, your energy is so much lighter than it was 3 sessions ago. And they'll make the comment, it's like, you know, I was just having dinner with my mother the other night and I hadn't seen her in 2 months, and she said the same thing. So they get validation outside of themselves. Of course, you know, if they don't resonate with that, then but if you're feeling lighter in your mindset, feeling lighter in your body, feeling lighter in your energy, then, you know, you are what we like to call in this work in a coherent space. Some people call that, you know, being connected to God, or
congruent, making compatible life choices, being whole.
But in Resonance Repatterning, that's kind of the coherence is what we're looking for. And to me, coherence is like just being in alignment. You know, I'm in alignment with my true self, and I'm in alignment with what I want to create or co-create in my life, you know. And you got to be in alignment with that, because otherwise, if you're not, you can wish and hope and wonder and do affirmations and meditations, and you can do that. And it's going to take forever. You've got to get in alignment. You got to get coherent, because that's where you feel good. And when you're coherent, it's like you get in the car, you drive to Whole Foods, you get front row parking, you know, that you walk in the door and they're giving you free, great food. And it's amazing how that feeling, everybody has had those days, you know, and you want to just continue, as, you know, when you have those really good days, and as you're going to sleep at night, you want to make sure that you go through and be in appreciation of all of those magical little moments, you know, and then when you wake up in the morning, you're really on a good foot.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And so, you know, in your work and doing the sessions, something else that people may not understand or think about is that, again, doing the positive affirmation, because some part of you wants your life to be better. So let's say I know I'm going to be in a positive relationship, or I know that I'm aligned for a positive relationship, or I know that I'm worthy of a financial, you know, certain goal that you may have, right? But this is what's interesting with resonance repatterning, is that you actually use negative and positive statements. And tell me a little bit about how that works and why you do that, because it might throw people a little bit. Like some people are like, well, why would I say I feel unworthy of love, or that I, you know, don't deserve money? when really I'm sitting here saying that I do. So
yeah. So the negative statements we identify during the session, and we check the energy around it. And even if you don't consciously believe something, a negative statement, you may subconsciously believe in it. So I'll give you a good example. Let's say, I'll go back to using the I'm stupid thing. And, I'll be working with somebody who's got a PhD, and they're like, I don't believe that because I've got a PhD. And it's like, yeah, that might be the reason why you went and got a PhD. Because subconsciously you could be holding the resonance of that, or you could be very irritated by people who you think are stupid. And so there's no reason for us
or be worried that people will think you're stupid. Other people might think you're, there's so many ways that it can play out subtly.
Resonate with it.
That you may not be realizing still is affecting you. Yeah. So that's, so you're accessing that subconscious belief system that, again, it's in the subconscious. It's something we may not even know. Sometimes we're aware of it. Yeah. But sometimes we're not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing is that why carry that? Why be upset with somebody who you think is being stupid? Like, that's not helping you. So
that's stupid.
Yeah, that's just dumb.
Right. Yeah.
But the point being made is that the more negative energy, and when I say negative energy, I mean a negative belief, a negative feeling tone, the more that we clear out the resonance with that, then the stuff that we bring in that's positive has more room to anchor. And I'll go through this pretty quick because I know we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon, but to let people know how we shift that resonance with the negative statements and we activate the positive statements is we use a modality that could be based in color, sound. Sometimes we use essential oils. A lot of times we just intend the essential oil into the energy field of the client. We use acupuncture points with tuning forks. I'm not an acupuncturist, so I have to look up a diagram that has, different meridians to it, and then all the acupuncture points.
And you proxy in for the person because most of your work can be done by phone. You do Zoom calls with people.
Yeah, I do Zoom calls, but even when I did in person, I would never do the acupuncture point on the person. I would proxy the diagram because I'm not an acupuncturist. Mm-hmm. So, and then I would use the tuning fork on the point on the diagram. And it's funny too, because I learned much later that, especially during the pandemic, a lot of the acupuncturists would use these. You can buy them, at an acupuncture store, but they're like little dolls that have pins that you stick into, and they have the actual acupuncture points. And I think it was one of my teachers said, you could get that, instead of use the diagram. And I was like, I'm from Louisiana. That's just too voodoo like for me to handle, like sticking a pin in a doll.
Yeah, right. Yeah, true that. Yeah, I hear you.
I'll use the tuning first, but it's amazing. Yeah. So we'll introduce a modality. It's usually, and I think it's because I am such a sound person that I tend to draw in people who are sound people. So 98% of the time, the modality is going to be a sound. And we have what we call quantum healing codes, and we have harmonic overtones, and we have just certain high vibrational pieces of music, drumming, all of that stuff, Tibetan bowls. And then we give a little bit of downtime for your heart wisdom to download this new frequency. Mm-hmm. Once that happens, the negative, it takes you so far away from the issue you brought to the table. It's like years away, 5 years away. So it's not real active in your energy field anymore. So it's much easier at that point for you to start putting your focus on what you do want versus what you don't want.
That is excellent. Yeah. Well, Lauren, it has just been an honor to have you on the show. I personally love your work, and I feel so grateful that we've gotten to do so many sessions. It's helped me tremendously. I highly recommend getting in touch with Lauren. And again, you can get in touch with her. It's hub.laurenjohnston.me. Her website www.laurenjohnston.me to book a session with her. She has a lot of free things and hypnosis meditations and resonance repatternings that you can check out that you might really benefit from. I think that anybody could benefit from the work you're doing. It just has such a high vibe to it. Yeah. And is there anything else that you want to add? Do you still do the group?
Yeah, I do. I have a monthly membership group where we do a once a month resonance repatterning, group repatterning. And then we do once a month a meditation, coaching, conversation. And then I send out a check-in email, and like I call it a tune-up Tuesday. It's an email with like certain videos, things to watch, or modalities. So a lot of times I also have a YouTube channel, and it's Lauren Johnston Life Coach on YouTube. And those have modalities that we can use that bring our vibrational frequency up to a more.
And if you're a coach, consultant,
just simple little videos around just doing a short, quick little modality. So so all that stuff goes in the Tune-Up Tuesday. And
it's a lot. You get a lot for all that, for sure. It sounds like I'm going to go in and check it out too. I did not realize all the things that you were offering. So again, check that out. And that can be found on your website.
Momentum membership.
Okay. And then everybody, if they wanted to work with you, they can do that through Zoom. So it doesn't really matter where they're at around the world. Yeah.
We do it on Zoom, no matter what,
Okay, cool. All righty. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And so wish everybody well and happy holidays. And we will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in to My Wild Magic with me, your host, Adrienne Cobb. Each one of us has a soul purpose on this earth and a higher purpose full of creative expression and unique soul attributes. Make sure to tune in next week on transformationtalkradio.com to continue your journey home to your truest self and pursue the path of unconditional self-love. If you would like to learn more about me, visit mywildmagic.com. Again, that's mywildmagic.com.